right, welcome everybody to the inaugural
Welcome back.
episode, the actual structured episode of This Is Not a Tutorials podcast. We're going to be calling it Top Notch Tuesday. So we are here. This is great. It's going to be awesome. We're going to have a lot of fun in this episode. I think it's going to be a really good jumping off point. I think we have some fantastic movies. I guess before we get into that, I'm Travis, Lazy Titan. You can find me on all kinds of whatever social stuff. I got the name there, the 808 there in the other corner there somewhere. There it is. Tim, go ahead.
Yep, like Travis says, I'm Tim. You can find me at Alan Corwin Music on TikTok, and then my other personal socials, which would just be Tim Corwin. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Sweet man.
And obviously here.
Yes. Every Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. Tune in. You can find us on YouTube and Rumble. We like to do both because Rumble, you can actually listen to it while you're driving. You don't necessarily have to watch video. It's not recommended. You shouldn't be doing that while you're driving anyway. So we do not condone any sort of distracted driving. Okay, don't do that. It's a no. So the last topic before we get into all of this, tomorrow is a huge day in this nation. Yes. So go ahead, get out there, make your voice known, vote, whatever side it is, get out there and exercise that freedom.
That's right.
Because who knows how much longer we may or may not have it, right? Could be an interesting turn of events here. But every year they say that, I swear. It's every time you turn the news on, it's another event. Oh yeah. Who knows? It's doom and gloom this generation, I swear. Everything. Yeah. So yeah, if you don't have anything else, Tim, I guess we can go ahead and get started.
Let's get into it. I'm excited.
All right. I know it's such a good one. Oh, we picked a couple of doozies on this. So as the name would suggest, we did a couple of Western movies, a couple of men movies we like to just watch and just like, man, I want to go ride a horse, or to shoot a gun from a horse, chase bad guys.
Going on a ranch back in the day. Absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, you brought that up at work the other day. Just like, what would it be like? Be probably amazing. I mean, I don't even know. Like just riding through some of that.
Scary.
Well, yeah, you could probably be scalped or shot or really just die of dysentery, right? I mean, that was probably a big one. At any point, hopefully I got some food. Just get a lot of jerky.
Exactly.
But yeah, a couple Westerns. So the first one, some folks might know it, not sure. 1993 came out, had a semi, famous cast, kind of. I mean, they were all up and comers at the time.
A few nobodies.
It was set in an Arizona, Arizona town, very, very famous town. A lot of people probably have been there, at least driving through Tucson, probably stopped, seen signs at least. Yeah, we went with Tombstone, a mega classic.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's going to be our jumping off point. We really wanted to start with something big, and it's going to be tough to top now. So we might be in trouble, actually. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 hours. The movie is 2 hours long, and it is you want more, right? You want more of that Wyatt Earp story.
Oh, yeah.
It was just such an iconic movie. So we're going to break it down a little bit, and the movie we paired it up to actually has a lot more similarities and parallels that I really didn't know until getting into all of this stuff. Seeing a lot of it match was really cool, that we actually just came on these two movies like just out of the blue. Like we didn't even really, we were just kind of like, okay, let's pick one. And then we have to, because 1995 is our median.
Yeah. I think we were looking at the date, or not the dates, but the years they were released. I think that's what determined the next one.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so it is a remake. The original was shot in black and white. It actually has a couple of pretty awesome parallels that we'll get into a little bit later. But, coming in, it was a great story. Great, honestly, I think great kind of generational Western where it was a lot newer, and it's still held to a lot of the traditional Western standards. When you put it up against, like, we're not putting it up against Tombstone, but comparing it with a movie like Tombstone. We went with 3:10 to Yuma, so another heavy hitting cast. A lot of folks haven't really seen it in the theaters. It only grossed what was it 72 million. It made its money back, but again, most westerns I think they carry legs much later on. Like Tombstone, it actually didn't do very well in theaters. It barely made its money back, but look at it now, right? It is just synonymous with.
Oh yeah.
It's like you cannot say that without oh, Tombstone's on that list. So
Exactly.
so let's kind of break down. Let's start with Tombstone, man. Let's break it down a little bit. So, movie came out in '93, so it's very close
Yep.
to our threshold. Um, Tim, I don't even think you were born yet.
No, 2 years later.
2 years old. So I was 3 years old, so I did not see it in theaters. Actually,
I would hope not.
Yeah, it'd be really odd. Quite violent for a 3-year-old. I don't know if my dad saw it in theaters or not. We were Clint Eastwood and John Wayne fans in the house. We watched a lot
Can't
of.
go wrong.
No, you
Yeah.
can't. And it's kind of funny how you kind of have those avenues of like which westerns people kind of grew up with, and kind of the view on it. Because my wife's uncles, they're huge movie fans. Like one of these days, we'll get at least one, if not both of them on here. They're hilarious dudes. But Tombstone is like that's their golden standard. So if it can't come close to it, they're like it's not a western, But again, they were Clint Eastwood and Kurt Russell there in Tombstone. So the movie, the budget, and this is another parallel. The budget was 25 million back then. Did crunch some numbers. It was 54 million now is about the rate. 310's budget is 55 million. So dead on for having two movies that was spanned. What is that? That's 24 years.
Yeah.
Budgets were that close. That's pretty crazy. And again, we're not like, okay, let's juggle, but who did it? Like that just happened. That was very close. So, and Tombstone has a lot of history with one, the town it came from, and two, the way the movie was made, because the original director, producer, everything, he was actually let go, I think only a couple months into the production shooting, and Kurt Russell basically ghost produced the rest of the movie. So I cannot remember, is it Kamados or something was the guy they brought in, which funny enough worked on the same movie that Jara, the original producer, worked on. So it was kind of like they used the same people again, but he kind of came in, but Kurt Russell was still behind the scenes doing it all, because there was kind of that lapse in leadership where there wasn't really anybody. And Kurt wanted the Wyatt Earp role so bad that he's like, this movie's getting made regardless. I mean, it is going to, I'm going to play this character. And funny enough, at the same time, guess who else is shooting their movie? Kevin Costner and his Wyatt Earp. So unfortunately, that created a nice conflict of, we got to hurry up and get this done. But I think the original screen time was supposed to be like 3 hours plus. And they cut a lot of scenes.
Wow.
With Wyatt Earp and I think it's Josephine, right? His love interest. They cut a bunch of scenes with them. There was a couple of campfire scenes that they didn't even really, I think they cut one and they just completely cut another one. But it was supposed to be much longer. So it would have been interesting to see what that would have affected, if anything.
Absolutely.
Or if it would have just added more to just the juiciness of the story.
Well, and with that being said, I mean, you go and watch Wyatt Earp and then you watch Tombstone. I mean, I feel like they kind of went through all of that and kind of tied up those loose ends of what you might have missed in Tombstone. You would have picked up in Wyatt Earp for the more personal backstory of Wyatt Earp's life. Right. So I'm sure that had something to do with it, that they found out what they're kind of aiming for in Wyatt Earp and was like, oh, well, we can just take that out then.
Yeah.
And like you said, go from 3 hours down to 2 hours, more appealing for more viewers and stuff like that. So,
sure. It's something a little more tangible, considering movies now they have to be 3 hours, I swear. Like every movie coming out, if you find one under 2 hours, it's probably something that's worth watching, because one, it is shorter, but they got to cut to the story. You don't have time for all that fluff and all the stuff they're doing now, or it's just useless dialogue. But this movie and Tombstone, I'll probably have a hot take, or maybe a little controversial. as an all around western, I don't personally think it kind of hit some marks that it
No.
probably would have if the it would have gone smoother. Like
Yeah.
it championed acting. The way that Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer carry this movie. I mean, Sam Elliott, Bill Pack, these guys like that's just easy acting for those
Yeah.
guys, right? They're just everyday life. I swear. Sam Elliott
Yeah.
probably he's just like, oh, that's my everyday stuff. It's easy. Like that's just him. And dude, how they created like that was what made the movie so much more tangible to everybody. It's just it was the consistency
Absolutely.
of the line delivery,
Oh, yeah.
this Kurt Russell's expressive like features
Mm-hmm.
made it so
You
much
could
more.
feel all the emotion behind it.
Yes, everything. And so there was even a scene like we'll pick it apart, of course. And I mean, there's flaws in any movie, but the one scene where he's at I think it's after Morgan gets shot and this dies on the pool table. He goes
Yeah.
outside and it's like raining.
Oh, yeah.
If you look in the background, the dirt's dry. Like it literally the
Oh, yeah.
rain machine is
Yeah.
and I'm sure it was because it was rushed. Like they were trying to get it out before Kevin Costner's. They had a 6 month head start, but they ran into all these problems. There was all this crazy, with the production, and Jara wanted like these lines delivered so perfectly. Like he's like, I have this idea, you have to say it like this. Do it again. Do it again. And it was creating so much, and they just started feeling like, dude, we're never going to get this finished. We're going to lose basically to Kevin Costner. We're not going to be able to, we're competing with somebody who just came off Dances with Wolves. It was, Oscar nominated movie. And they're like, dude, we have to do something about this. And I mean, clearly a couple folks stepped up and, I mean, just hold this movie into the gold standard. But again, it's these little things that you can, you pick apart other movies, Jurassic Park, you can see things in the background. It just any movie has like a fun Easter egg, right? So it's just kind of funny seeing that. But the scene, it's still like he gave everything for that role. He clearly showed, Kurt Russell showed that this is what I want, this is what I wanted, and this is how it played out. Some of the marks that I don't give it as high is there's obviously different types of westerns. I don't think it's an epic western. And what clarifying that westerns were scenery. Okay, there was a lot of scenery and a lot of westerns. So, for instance, you look at Pale Rider, Hang 'Em High, a lot of the early spaghetti westerns, right? And they all kind of have different terms, I think, throughout the years and things. But it was traveling on the horse, these huge landscapes, these just monolith mountaintops and snow and there was just no dialogue, right? It's score, it's music, and then just riding your horse. I mean, that was kind of like the fantasy of the cowboy, right? You're just out there being a man's man. And Tombstone doesn't travel, which it is based in one city, so kind of why would it? They show them in Tucson, they show them in Tombstone. That's it. There's really not too much set. But again, I think that lends a hand to the fact that they were running into so many issues with the producing. I'm sure the budget. I'm sure that they wanted to do all this epic stuff, and they weren't able to get to it. So I think that's one of the marks that I usually, when it comes to a western, I'm looking for that. I'm looking for scenery. I'm looking for like stuff out there.
For sure.
And I don't think, did they actually shoot anything in Tombstone? I don't know that information.
I feel like they did, and this is terrible since I'm from Arizona that I don't know this for sure, but I feel like they did, or at least maybe the OK Corral scene was actually at OK Corral. I think I should have done the research before. This is terrible.
It's the same here. Like I didn't look into it, but it's one of those like as I get going, I was like, I don't want to.
Yeah, I feel like not all of it was, but some of it was.
Yeah.
Or they. I know they definitely did some rebuilding. Like we had a thing out there called Rawhide,
Yeah.
So it was like a Western town where they do like reenactments and stuff. So I know they definitely did that to kind of set it more in the time, just like they did with any movie.
Yeah.
Which we could get into that if you want. We lived in a place
Go ahead.
called
Yeah. Good.
Gold Canyon, and right down the street at the corner there, there's a place called Apache Land, and that's where they filmed like Rio Bravo and movies like that. And it was they just left the town how it was from all those Western movies back in the day, and then like the saloon, you can go in there and have dinner and have a drink type of thing. They have the jailhouse, and you could do stagecoach rides. So I'm pretty sure they probably just did one of those type towns and just built it up for the movie. But I want to
Sure.
say they did film some of the movie at Tombstone, and I want to say it was at OK Corral just for the authenticity of it.
Sure. Yeah. And have you been to Tombstone or no?
I have not. I have family that's been there.
So I've been there twice, and I know they have pictures. I know they have,
Yeah.
all kinds of the memorabilia and stuff like that, but I cannot remember if they had anything of um, from San Diego. So Anchorman, they have all
Yeah.
kinds of like callbacks. Like obviously you can tell when he's in Balboa Park, like, oh yeah, the movie was shot there. He's on the Bay
Yeah.
Bridge, like all that stuff. So you recognize it, but their set designs, like they mimicked it very well. It's dusty old town. It's it's pretty. If they did it, now was that also another hiccup? Where they couldn't really shoot, or what did it cost for them to shoot? Because you probably have to close
Yeah.
everything down, right? You can't just have
For sure.
an active set and then just have modern age people walking through the 1800s.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
which some movies catch every once in a while,
Yeah.
but maybe that kind of shrunk it a little bit to where they probably could have expanded a little bit more, right? The Vendetta ride at the end, they are moving, but it's close-up shots of the horse, so you're not getting the full, I don't think the full effect of it, right? Because they're galloping through these plains, but all you're seeing is like a quick action shot of the feet and things like that, and you're like, you're not maybe getting the scale of it. It should be a lot bigger.
Sure.
And how
For
far did they have to go? Because all of a sudden they're at like the creek or the river in the forest and stuff. And outside of Tombstone is desert. So I mean, where's that? You know what I mean? Like you don't necessarily
sure.
have to do like the Indiana Jones map where it shows where he's going, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like if you had a bigger view of it, you could probably see where the river is, right? Because all the trees are going to be right around
For
it.
sure.
So
For sure.
it's a better scale to it. But again, it's super nitpicky. This was a movie that was created in '93, and with what they had, it's a masterpiece. So
Oh, for sure.
it's just finding these little things that make you go, huh? And they must have had a bigger idea, right? I'm sure there was so much more, but
Yeah.
how they executed it, the original producers, why he was probably let go is it was poor execution. Like they couldn't get things done, or he was so nitpicky about it. So, it makes you wonder what was his original direction to where when it was taken over by, the new director, also Kurt Russell, how did he get it to what it was? Like, what did he do? What did he say? Like, what was his leadership like?
For sure. For sure. Well, and I mean, like you said, it's not your traditional Western. It's more of like little autobiographies of everybody who was in the crew, essentially. You learn a little bit about everybody, not just Wyatt Earp and not just the marshals and the deputy marshals and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. It's not your traditional Western type movie, but I think it's because of the autobiographical ways that they went about it, where you didn't really have that traditional feel because you're having to tell stories about numerous people, not just one or two groups.
Sure, and I guess that probably would have pushed it into that 3-hour mark, right? Because then you're taking, you're zooming out and then looking at Virgil, go back in, look at Morgan, and then you're kind of doing things to show the brothers. Because I think historically it was Virgil who was the sheriff of Tombstone. I believe it was Sam Elliott's character who was the sheriff, and so they kind of changed it a little bit. Which again, it clearly as I'm sure there are parts that are factual, right? They talk about the part in the
it's Hollywood.
Well, true, right? Like you can't take, but that would have been Kevin Costner's, right? His is a lot more biopic of a zoom in on Wyatt Earp Whereas,
Yeah.
Kurt Russell's in Tombstone was a little more Hollywood, a little more action,
Right.
Riding and shooting and doing all that, the hail of bullets everywhere and all that.
Well, and like you said about just their story and just their experiences in Tombstone and Tucson when they got there. So, yeah, it's more.
And just Kurt Russell's overall just prowess, right? Like he wasn't. I don't think he had too many other heavy roles before this, but this is probably just him and Val Kilmer. Really, I don't think Top Gun was after, I believe. Right? Or was that in '80s?
No, Top Gun was before.
Top Gun
was 10 years before.
So I think he had maybe like one or two major roles beforehand. And then this just, I mean, honestly, I would say that's way better than Iceman. Him as Doc Holliday is freaking phenomenal. I don't know. I think so because of like.
But without him being Iceman, he can't be Doc Holliday.
Well, how do you know? I mean,
I'm just saying.
So, did you know there was somebody else slated for that role of Doc Holliday? And if you did, who is it?
I can't remember who it was, but I did. I do think I remember hearing about that.
It was William Dafoe.
Yeah, no.
So they chose not to go with him because he had just done the Martin Scorsese movie, The Last Temptation of Jesus Christ or something. It's beyond me. I've seen like clips and things here. I couldn't tell you the whole movie, but it's a very controversial movie, and the people who are invested in Tombstone, which coincidentally all draw back to Disney, which I thought was just, of course, right? They were at the center of it. They own it. So it's because the company was bought out and all this or whatever. They didn't want, even back then in '93, they still didn't want something controversial. And it's like, it's a Western, like I understand the character or the actor, right? But that's not, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It could have still drawn that audience, like that saw him and liked him in the movie. And it's a whole new audience for a whole new genre of movie. But it's still interesting how even 30 years ago, this was still, it was 30 years ago. It's still kind of relevant that they're, people who did controversial roles were still missing out on potentially other ones.
Oh yeah.
But I still think Val Kilmer would have been just as monumental if he hadn't done Top Gun beforehand. I think he still would have played his role as it was. Like, I don't think being Iceman gave him better acting chops for that role.
Not specifically for that role, but I'm sure everything that was after Top Gun, he probably was able to get, more roles and better roles to get the chops. So that way, when something like Tombstone comes along, he just knocked it out of the park anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, he
was also really young in Tombstone in Top Gun. I mean, that entire cast was super young. So, which was about 10 years later for Tombstone. So, 10 years of experience and, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah,
True. Yeah. I can see it.
Willem Dafoe as Doc Holliday, that movie would not have been as good.
I don't think so. Yeah. It would be. It's one of those things where it'd still be interesting.
It's not his role. Yeah.
No. And that's where, I'd be curious. I didn't follow that rabbit hole, but I would be curious if he took something instead of or in lieu of. When was Boondock Saints? Was it like 94 and he would have been shooting Tombstone instead of then?
True.
You know what I mean? I don't know what it is, but that would be interesting to be like, what if we missed out on this one, right? Like, where does the path diverge? But the overall just,
like you said, not to cut you off, but that's what the conversation we had the other day of
Indiana Jones.
Tom Selleck.
Yeah, Tom Selleck.
Like that. No,
Indiana Jones was a big old.
I don't need Magnum
PI.
I don't need Magnum PI being an archaeologist professor.
Dude, Indiana Jones with the shorty shorts, bro. Come on, no. And like the Hawaiian shirt.
With a Tiger's hat on. No thanks. That's like if Harrison Ford and Tom Selleck just swapped roles entirely. Like,
no kidding, huh?
Like, it doesn't work.
Have Tom Selleck as Han Solo.
That'd be
That'd be
so weird.
interesting, dude. It'd be so weird.
He'd be so calm.
It would be, right? Oh man, dude. Yeah, see, that's interesting. That's interesting to think about. Um, yeah, what? I don't have too much more except for like some of the I guess the trivia with it.
Yeah.
Watching it, and let's see. I guess just like how these characters were just quickly intertwined and like shown that
Yeah.
these are the bad guys, these are the good guys.
Yes.
That's wonderful for a Western, right? Because you don't want to have those people that kind of walk that line a little bit, and it's not.
Right.
We need a defining role. You're either good or you're bad. Like, that's
Right.
great. Fine. Set up our standards. Like, don't, and again, I think it all comes back to like how the producing went and stuff. They had to do that. They had to like, okay, we got to get to the story. Like, we don't have time for anything really.
Yeah.
Like, let's get
right
these things
into it.
shot. Let's let people get at it. I know we were talking about the mustaches. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
new producer that came in, all of them had to have real mustaches. That was like one of the things he made
I've
the
heard that.
standard. So
Yeah.
none of them are fake. Every mustache you see is actual mustache. So because I asked that to him, like, I wonder if there are any, whether it was dyed or enhanced in any manner, like add whatever. But
I could see
every
him
single one was
being.
real.
Yeah, I can see it all being real, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kurt Russell had that, a little darkened, little before Just for Men came out. But
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
it's
Like,
if you look at it, that thing is like,
dude, you can't see through it. Like, it is a
No.
forest. Like, it's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
not to knock him, not like he couldn't grow a mustache or anything, but that is dark, and he doesn't have dark hair. So that's like where my point was, where he
Right.
like we kind of have blondish hair, so my mustache is blonde. It's not it highlighted, right? Like it's not just dark, whereas like the neck hair is. So that's just genetics, just the way it grows. So,
Right.
but even still, it was an interesting tidbit that they're like, no,
sure.
all of you start growing your mustaches. Like this
Yeah.
is, if you can't, you're out of here. Like that's what we have
That'd
to
be
do.
another shit. That'd be a shitty way to get fired from a movie, huh?
Couldn't grow a mustache, man.
Damn it.
Yeah, that would suck. Like, quick, think of something manly. Quick, grow one.
Who's got some shoe polish?
Yeah, seriously. Just thinking that up real fast.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else about like just the overall tone of the movie? Like anything?
No, I mean, you kind of hit everything that I was pretty much going to say. I mean, like I said, it's not really like your traditional Western, which is fine just because of the story that, like we were saying from the very beginning. I mean, they're getting off the train and it's, you're literally hitting the ground running and you're just in the story. Like you said, they do a great job of just laying it out, so you know who's good and bad, what's going on, what's the goal of the Earp brothers, if you will, and everything else. I mean, it's the way that the story is put together, and obviously it's based off of mostly true events. It was probably pretty easy to do that, but just in the movie for them to actually do that and set it up so it's pretty easy for the viewer. I mean, you don't always see that, and that's kind of, I think, part of why it's so good too, where it's like you really don't have to think too much about it; you can just enjoy it.
Yep, that's it. It's
And then
just like an
obviously all the
action.
one lines that are in it, which are fantastic.
Yeah, and most of them were delivered by Val Kilmer himself. Like just his Doc Holliday portrayal was, I don't think it was really anything close to what people said, but it is just synonymous with that. Like that's not how he would have been, but it doesn't matter. I guess you know what I mean. Like history was kind of rewritten with the way he did this. Like it, just everything, and it turned more into a like a buddy Western in a sense. Like then it was a relationship between Wyatt and Doc, where that wasn't necessarily how history was, but it didn't really matter. Because if people wanted it, they would just go look for the look at the history themselves. They wanted to get into it if they thought it was really cool. It'd be like, oh, fun fact, but but I think that does turn it away from a Western a little bit because they're not necessarily, you don't have a lot of buddy Westerns.
For sure.
So maybe that, excuse me. So maybe that does put it in like a realm of its own. Um,
Yeah.
because it's usually it's just the one guy or the band of the good guys, and it's not so much of
Right.
like, you know, they're friends from the beginning, so they're not really building on their relationship. They've already
Right.
been through problems, whatever, and the posse or whatever it is. So I think that does help push it into a realm of its own,
Yeah.
and separate it from, you know, just your run of the mill westerns. Which again, nothing wrong with that, but to be that good, you have to create separation, right? Like I
For
said,
sure.
the competition was Kevin Costner, like probably one of the most modern day known Western filmmakers, stars, like ever, right?
Yeah.
You could put him up against anybody, and he's going to have movies that were just
Oh, yeah.
fantastic. Like we talked about Lonesome Dove and or Open Range. You know, it's
Yeah.
a fantastic movie, but again,
Yeah.
big epic views and things. So that's, you know,
For sure.
like I said, watching the Clint Eastwood stuff, most of his movies were just, you know, him riding, which people
Yeah.
knocks on because we want a little more action to it. But that wasn't necessarily what the Western was. It wasn't just all about shooting guns. That was obviously an aspect to it, but we needed, like personally, just seeing some of that stuff like on the big screen would have just been phenomenal. IMAX, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Back then they didn't have it, but yeah, I mean, you can't. Yeah, you can't. You just can't, right? Like you don't have anything that could compare to that. Like sitting there,
No.
you know, feeling like you're watching him ride by. Right? Like
Oh, for sure.
it's crazy. God damn it! It's a frog in my throat or something, dude. I don't know what happened. Anyway, so some of the fun facts before we start talking about Yuma, that I stumbled upon, and then I was like, oh, that's actually really cool. One thing was the Huckleberry line. So I don't know if you know
Yeah.
about the. I don't know where it came from, but I've heard this. I think I heard it recently, maybe like 3 years ago, like popped up for some reason. That it's not "I'm your Huckleberry," so it's "I'm your Hucklebearer," is what the argument was. And so I guess back in those days, a huckle
Yeah.
was what they called the what do we call it? It was on the casket, like the post that you would hold.
Yeah.
So he was basically
Oh,
like,
okay.
I'm your
Yeah. Yeah.
casket, like I'll bury you, I guess. So
Yeah.
it doesn't quite, if that was the case. I mean, they've already proven it otherwise, but why
Right.
there was like that that line that I'm your Hucklebear as
Yeah.
opposed to Huckleberry.
Yeah.
There was T-shirts. There was, I mean, any type of
Anything
memorabilia
you
that
think
said
of.
I am
Oh, yeah.
like your Huckleberry.
I'm your Huckleberry.
Yeah, like how did anybody watching like, oh my god, he said Hucklebear. Ooh, they've been wrong for 30 years, you know, like, and jumped on this
Yeah.
like conspiracy. I think it's funny, but if that was the case, it doesn't make sense. So why? I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it
I
was
had
all
not
over.
heard of that.
Yeah,
But I mean,
so-
it makes sense for Doc Holliday's character since he was, you know, such a drunk and stuff like that, where it probably that's what he was supposed to say, but it came out Huckleberry just because he's hammered.
It could. I mean, I think it was just always Huckleberry, and I think somebody tried to find something maybe. But again, he, you know, Doc Holliday's, at least Val Kilmer's, was a bit of a nihilist, right? Like everything was doom and
Right.
gloom, and he's talking about all this, you know, just kind of dark and depressing things. Is, you know, super
For sure.
smart and intelligent, but everything was kind of like, well, he was dying anyway, so what does it matter,
Right.
So maybe that's why people kind of saw it as like, maybe that was, you know, it was a different line because it was something of like the moment he said it was when he was like standing up for his buddy. So
Yeah.
I guess it could have been, you know, both lines, but ultimately it's always been Huckleberry. And then they saw,
Yeah.
I think somebody even went back and found like a copy of the script many years and all that, and it says Huckleberry. But and that was a saying that meant like, I'm your man. So like, I'm your guy. Like, I got your back.
Right.
Which again, that probably makes more sense because of both
Right.
the iterations he says it. We're like, what's up, dude? Why? I'm your guy. Let's go.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think most of the wonderful lines that we remember were probably delivered by
Oh, yeah.
Val Kilmer. Yeah. Like some of the stuff is just, it's too funny, man. Like the insults and stuff are just so over like people's heads that it was they weren't even really like that bad of an insult. Like you
No.
could have said so much worse, but because it was said so smartly, they were like, I don't know what you said,
Oh
but
yeah.
I think Kevin
Yeah, that
Hart
was
says something about
that
like
was
that.
that was the great thing about, Doc Holliday in that time, that he was really an intelligent person. Um, he was just a drunk, so nobody took him serious. And then he started talking. They're like, "Oh, he's actually got a brain."
Right. He's trying to drown it out, but it's there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he speaks Latin to Johnny Ringo.
That's right. So
Johnny Ringo looks like somebody who walked over your grave. So good.
dude, yeah, that last scene is just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
What is it? I might not be as sick as I let on. Yeah. I think I see that one
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
time
yeah,
where he's just
yeah.
like, I might not have been as sick as I let on.
Yeah.
Like, nope, you're still dying. Like, hey, appreciate it, but it's gonna get worse,
Yeah.
buddy. Yeah.
Or when Johnny Ringo's like, "Oh, I was just kidding about," I wasn't.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah,
good.
because
Like it's so relatable in so many ways. You're like, yeah, I get it.
yeah. Was that where he did the cup trick, where he was like doing the cup drawing? Like that was a great one too. His little cup.
Oh, it was great. Just
I think that was when
you
he
know.
was talking shit to him the first time, and then he was like,
Yeah.
and he's playing with
Well,
the
Johnny
cup, and
Ringo-
everybody starts laughing at him.
Yeah, because Johnny Ringo goes through and does the pistol tricks, and then after he holsters, finishes a drink with that little.
Yeah, it's a little spinny cup. Yeah. He's just like a slap in the face. It was so good.
Oh, another scene that has always amazed me, which clearly they're probably using blanks in all their guns and stuff like that. Which, fun fact, I actually have a pistol that's pretty much just like in all those movies. For my 6th birthday at Apacheland, um, the guys that were running the show out there, that were the sheriff of the town, if you will. For my birthday, they told me to go lay down in the middle of the street. So I did, and they're like, "Don't move until we tell you to move." So what they did was, I was laying out there, flat, stiff as a board, and they bring out a mini coffin, and they shoot blanks into it, and then they pick up the coffin, and they're like, "Don't move until we tell you to move." So there's pictures of me with just a cowboy hat over my face and like a poncho or whatever, and I'm there probably for a couple of minutes. But anyway, I have a
Nice.
gun that they used, and they took the firing pin out of it, but that's old, revolver style. So with that being said, there's a scene where, of course, now I can't remember the name of the guy, but he was like the main guy for the
The
cowboy.
bad guy.
Yeah. What's his name?
Besides Johnny, that was William Bocius. Boccius? I don't know how you say his last
Something
name.
like that.
But it was like
Yeah.
something
He was
Bill.
one- He had
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
When he's hammered and he's shooting at the moon, literally, but then he goes to turn over his guns to the sheriff or the marshal, and he shoots him with the pistols upside down with his pinkies.
Right.
That always amazed me, because it's like, even with it being a blank, it's still going to fire. And
Right.
It's still going to have some recoil to it. So it's like, it's just insane that. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's just I'm overanalyzing the hell out of it, and it really had nothing to, just a pop gun at that point. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Just having the weight of that thing,
Sure.
and he had him upside down and fired him with his pinkies. I'm always just like,
Yeah.
either that really happened, or that was just a great movie trick where it's just like, that was pretty badass. Like, it's
Yeah.
a shitty scene, but you're like, anyway, that's my little tangent.
So great that you brought that up. And folks who are listening, we do not plan any of this stuff. So
No.
any of these segues, they're just masterfully done in the
Well,
moment.
truth be told, Travis and I pretty much have the same mind for a lot of things, where it's like, oh, also, and then it just goes back and forth. So it's pretty beautiful in the symphony of our disturbed minds.
Yeah, it's basically one brain, and then it just will bounce back and forth. So like it'll go on a tangent. Yep, it'll bounce right back to me, and it's just one train of thought. We have one brain between us both. Brain cell. Sorry, singular. Yeah. So that Marshall is Glenn Ford. He was in the original 310 to Yuma in 1957.
Hmm.
Yeah, so nice
That's a
little
little.
parallel there again.
Yeah. I like it.
And okay, sorry, I wrote it down. I'm mistaken. He was going to be cast as the Marshal. He in Tombstone. It went to I'm sorry, it went to Harry Carey Jr. I do believe. So it was going to be Glenn Ford, but he got sick and couldn't do the
Oh.
role. So
Either way, that's cool.
But either way, there is a parallel between the two. So yes, it was going to be because Glenn Ford played Ben Wade actually. So Russell Crowe's character.
Okay.
So he was like the main bad guy in 310 original one. But unfortunately, yes, and I think he passed away. If I saw the dates right, I think it was either the year before 310 came out or the year of. So it was like right there, unfortunately. But yeah, he was almost a Marshal. So that would have been another crazy coincidence.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so the Huckleberry line, I always think it's just funny that there is, because back to that, I brought it up to my wife's uncles, and that, like I said, they're huge Tombstone fans. Like, one of her uncles goes there for like vacation, basically. Like he'll just be like, "You want to go to Tombstone?" And him and his wife just cruise out. They'll stay in the hotel for a little bit. They'll go eat at the saloon and all that stuff. Like, absolutely in love with it. Which, hey, that's fantastic. Do we all have that like that whatever it was, that comfort place that we're just like, I will go there 100 times. I've been there 100 times. I'll go there.
Oh yeah.
Times.
Well, and it's like that little boy thing, it's like maybe he always wanted to be a cowboy type of thing. So that's how he can.
That's it. Relate to it or get back to it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's a scene in the beginning, and I remember this because I have a picture. Like you said, you kind of had one. There's a tombstone that when they first get to Tombstone, it's an authentic one that's from the town. So that's why I ask if it's the same. I think it's they remade it, but it's Lester Moore took 4 slugs with a 44, no less, no more. It's the like written in big black letters. I was in the graveyard there at the OK Corral, and that's right there. So I have a picture next to that one. One of the times we down, I was like, hey, I actually caught that because I was like, that's one of the things I've seen that before.
That's cool.
So yeah, that was pretty sick. One of the interesting things, and this is up my alley. There's a Batman connection because obviously we know that Val Kilmer was Batman, right?
Right.
So, do you know who Adam West is?
Yeah. Okay.
He played Doc Holliday in 3 TV movie appearances. There was Sugarfoot, Colt 45. I should have wrote down the last. I was trying to remember it just off the top. There was one more, and not but 2 years. I think it was 2 years later, he becomes Gotham's Cape Crusader Batman. It was Adam West, and then what was it? 30 years after that role, Val Kilmer takes up the mantle in Batman Forever. So I was like, what? That's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. So they played, maybe it was just that, how some roles will kind of have that connection, like the actors decades apart had that same connection in one role that didn't even have to do with the Batman thing, right? But they both played, a certain character than that, So there's like what is that? Is it 7 degrees of Bacon or 9 degrees? I never remember. But where everybody's connected to Kevin Bacon. It's an interesting game if you're super smart. Like, I'm sure if we do this for like years, we'll probably be able to do it. Yeah. I think it's 7 degrees. I think it's within 7
degrees.
7 connections. You said person is connected to Kevin Bacon.
That's
it is fun. It's a crazy game. My dad was able to do a little bit of it, but there was times where it just got like, I'm like, I don't even know if you're telling me who that person is. Like, I have no idea. You tell me, like, what am I gonna? Yeah, you can Google it. I was too young. Plus, I was like, Google was around at the time. But yeah, I think that was probably one of the last connections that I thought was pretty interesting. Was the Batman one?
Yeah, that's cool.
Like, just through cinema and through connections that you're like, I never would have drawn that line other than it was Val Kilmer, but then. The original. So if you don't have anything else, we can get into our next heavy hitter.
Let's get into it. Yeah.
So this is the first time you've seen this movie.
Yeah.
So I saw this movie in theaters. One huge, like I said, we're huge Western fans. So I mean, it was it was 2007. I was only 17. It was a great Western. I love Russell Crowe. Gladiator. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then Christian Bale. This was still this was just before Batman, or I think it was after Batman Begins and before the Dark Knight. 'Cause I think Dark Knight was in.
09?
Yeah, it was 09, so I think it was right in the middle because they weren't right next to
Yeah.
each other. So huge. I mean, well, he's had a historic career as it was. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
he started acting when he was like 6 or 7 years old. That's
Well, it's a pretty
Empire of the
interesting
Sun,
role for him too,
right? Because you
in
don't.
my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't really picture it, and I think a few times you kind of pick
No.
up on the. It's kind of, I think, a difficult accent that either they were
Yeah.
going for, or because his character actually comes from Massachusetts, but he doesn't
Yeah.
have like there's no. Well, was he born in Massachusetts, or was he still, did he still travel in from somewhere else? But
Well, and it's also in the 1800s still, so I don't know. I guess somebody can comment down below, but I don't know if there was really like a Boston accent per se
right,
during that time. Probably would have been more of like an English type accent still.
right, and so
I
that's
would
where I'm like,
assume. I mean,
well,
that's about.
where was the origin country though, right? Because we had a bunch of the Irish coming over, we had still a bunch of English.
Yeah.
There was a lot of settlers and immigrants from all kinds of
Oh,
countries
for
still coming
sure.
over. So, he doesn't, but I think it still plays out well because he doesn't necessarily have the like a solid Western accent. Like it's still kind of
Oh,
muddled,
for sure.
which I think probably helped him because he's British by nature anyway. Now,
Right.
by that time, he should have his accents down. So I don't know, but I can't recall him in any kind of Western or Southern role.
Well, and what's funny about that, speaking of accents and stuff like that, I want to say it was towards the end, you could hear the Batman voice start coming out a
Oh.
little bit when they're
Yeah, well,
in the
yes.
train station waiting for the train to come.
Dude, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I was
And
like,
when they're getting
I heard
shot
that.
at, yeah.
Yes.
And you're like,
Yeah.
you can't rely on trains.
Yeah.
I forget what the line is, but yeah, it's like more of a grizzle, and you're like, wait a
You're like,
minute.
that was Batman. Yeah.
And you wouldn't have caught it during, like if you saw
No,
it, like I
yeah.
saw it there, I never thought anything of it,
For
right?
sure.
But now you're watching, you're like, oh, I got you. I see.
Yeah,
You slipped
yeah.
up, didn't you? You slipped up
Sure
there.
did.
You were trying a little too hard. Or he was still in between or in the role with Dark Knight,
I was gonna
because
say,
I'm sure
yeah,
they would have
he
been
could have
shooting
been-
around the same time. So he was probably going
Probably.
from project to project.
Yeah. It was a busy time for him.
Yeah, the early or I guess it'd be mid to late 2000s. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
a busy person.
Yeah.
Some of those, and just like the shooting too, like where it was, right? Like, this was shot in New Mexico, which the original was also shot in New Mexico.
That's cool.
So that was kind of cool that they had a lot of the same scenery. I guess they would have had,
Yeah.
but it maybe far backdrop sceneries, I shouldn't say, because I don't think the shooting places were the same. I think they had two different names, but
For sure. Yeah.
still, again, a good homage to it. Now, what did you think of it?
Overall, I thought it was a pretty good movie. I'm one of those where I like to watch something probably 2 or 3 times before I have a conclusive opinion about it, just because you get lost in a couple of moments. But it felt like it went a little slow in the beginning, which is kind of, I would say, typical for a Western, where it's like, okay, we get it, let's move on type of thing. But once they started moving, once they caught Wade, and they started moving them from place to place, it started to develop pretty good. I thought Ben Foster did a great job in that role.
I knew you would.
Yeah. Which he's a great actor anyway, but like I was telling you, I like the struggle that you saw, or I should say the fake struggle that you saw, from the bad guy, where it's like usually, the corny ending of, oh, now he's good all of a sudden, or
Yeah.
he's just not going to do it anymore. And it's like, I was really hoping that wasn't going to be the case, because I'm like, it's not really that guy. And
Yeah.
then you're like, okay, I get it. Like, he saw good enough in a father and son type of thing to like get them through so that way they're taken care of. But like, I'm still a bad
So a
person.
bad guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just because I have a moment of light or redemption doesn't change
Yeah.
my history. It doesn't change,
Yeah.
anything. It's just in that moment, yeah, he had
Yeah.
that like the connection, right? Because they went through a couple of situations where Dan, Christian Bale's character, still kind of stood up for Ben in a sense. Like when they were in the mining area and they were
Yep.
basically torturing him, he was still like, "Hey, this isn't right." So
Right.
let's, they were kind of a team, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think Ben alludes to that a couple of times, like, "Hey, we could make a good team." But it doesn't change any, like it's like you said, it doesn't make it just like, oh, so wait, he's a good guy now just because he did what he did.
Right.
It's like, no, it's still shitty. Like it wasn't,
Oh, for sure. And another
and
great scene was when they're waiting at the hotel,
mhm,
and Ben's just like upping his amount. He's like, and then he finally gets up to $1,000, and
yeah,
then Dan's just like, and do what with it? Everybody's gonna know.
right,
Or
right,
like, where'd you get this money from? He's like, what? You're gonna put it in a deposit into my bank?
yeah.
Like
You're
that
gonna go
was
make
so
an
smart
anonymous
because like,
deposit. Yeah,
yeah, like you don't ever see that in it, like really in any modern movies either. Like very rarely do you see where it's like, for what benefit? Like, sure, you can give me all this money and whatever, but like the realistic and logical, okay,
right,
cool, but what the hell am I gonna do with it? I'm like, that was unexpected, and it's just like, I don't know. It was a very good scene in my opinion, just because it was like you don't ever see that.
right,
The true reasoning of being like, yeah, sure, but what, I can't ever spend it because everybody's gonna know where it came from,
right.
and then wonder where it came or why I got it.
Yeah, it's building on the morals, right? Like he's
Yeah,
down to the core. He was not going to sell himself. He was going to try. I mean, in the sense of like sell his soul to then just make it ahead that way. Like of course, he sold himself to this cause that I'm going to get you
right,
there. We're going to complete this, and then I'm going to get my money. And I did a good thing, and now I'm a hero because
right,
obviously his kid is always like, doubts him. You're not going to do this. You're not going to help us. You never do it. He's got that
right.
like nothing's going to change, even though you keep saying it is. Um, and he brings that up later too, right? When Ben's basically about to leave him, or be like, "Dude, I got you. I'm
About
out."
to strangle him. Yeah,
Yeah, like we're done. And he's like, I've never been a hero and stuff. And he tells him his
yeah,
story about how he lost his leg and all that. Um, but yeah, up until the bitter end, like he was like,
yep,
"Nope, we're doing the right thing. Doesn't matter
yep,
because you will have to live with it." Like
yep.
other folks know it's a small town. Like they're really small
Yeah,
towns. Like they're gonna
in
know.
Bisbee.
Oh, that dude just basically let him go, and then he went and killed 30 people or whatever it was, right?
Right,
For $1,000. How do you feel now, right? And you're still ostracized. Like, it doesn't matter what you would have
right.
done after that. It's still gonna
Yeah,
weigh on you that we still can't live well. They're still gonna,
right.
they're still gonna plague us. They're gonna do whatever. And truly, that's what I like too, is that it was again another defining good guy, bad guy. Like
Yeah,
Ben Wade, he was very manipulative and he knew
yep.
how to charm. He knew how to talk. He was very
Hmm.
persuasive. It didn't matter to to Dan
No,
how he talked to him. Didn't matter. Like stubborn as it was, fought for the North. That was his his
yep,
backstory. It was basically told he was fighting for the North, right? Because that's what they said. They ran out of people, and they're like, "Yeah, you're fighting now." Um,
yeah,
but he stubborn in his ways. He wasn't going to change, and that's like
yeah,
there's no um, there's no lacking of a good guy character. Which again, nowadays they can't just have a good guy character anymore. It's
no,
always gotta they gotta be kind of weak, or they have kind of like a weird flaw, or it just like,
hmm,
why can't we just have a good moral good guy character? And that's what I think,
yeah,
again, why a western stands out from a lot of other movies, and why it's a fantasy for most guys to be a cowboy, is because it was
yeah,
a defining role. Whether you were good or bad, you weren't
hmm,
the anti-hero or this or that. Like you were on one side or the other. There was no down the middle. So seeing that in Christian Bale's performance of the character was fantastic. They did a very good job. Um, again, what kind of set it apart too was like they were traveling, right? That's kind of one of the things with the westerns. They're traveling. You're
hmm,
going town to town. You're doing whatever it is. Pale Rider was a great example, right? He's always traveling somewhere, and seeing those, the epic sceneries and things. You're going through all the mountain passes, and that's fantastic. It's really good. They
Yeah.
incorporated, Native Americans. This is Apache country. It's that.
Hmm.
I think was it Ben Wade's
Chinese.
sharpshooter was. That's right.
Oh,
Yeah,
he was
Bill Laredo
Apache.
was.
Yeah.
He was no, he was Mexican. I think it was a Mexican. I think it was like
I thought he
Campos
was
or something,
Apache.
right? No, I think he said
I thought he said he
so,
was an Apache sharpshooter.
he has an Apache with him. So he's a
Oh, okay.
Mexican sharpshooter and an Apache with him. I don't
Gotcha.
remember if they say anything of who that is. Because it's
Well,
when
the sharpshooter like never says anything either, so it's not like you're gonna tell by their accent.
no, but I'm pretty sure when he's handing out money at the bar, he says Campos, and the dude walks up.
Okay.
But maybe it was too. Maybe that's just the name. He was a Mexican Apache sharpshooter. I don't know. But
Who knows?
but yeah, when Ben Foster's in the town, he's being deceptive and leaving those guys.
Oh yeah.
That was again another great scene, right? He just
Oh, yeah.
lifts his hat up. They've never really seen me, and he goes in and just
Yep.
lays down his line. And he's like, "They have a lot of guns, Mister. They were shooting bullets. Like, why didn't you do anything?" He's like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
Like it's just funny how he still can portray it from that side.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was like a surprise role from Luke Wilson. It was kind of interesting.
Oh yeah. Like that
Yeah,
was
just
kind
random.
of yeah. I'm like, oh, so Luke Wilson's here for the party. That's cool.
Just like a Western minor type. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
okay. It did kind of
It
throw
was
you.
so random. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, okay.
But
I'm glad he was only in there for as long as he was, just because it's like,
yeah, you're
no.
not wrong. That might have taken it down a few notches. I don't know that it would have been held as high as it was for a modern Western. Because
yeah,
even when we looked, there really wasn't that many modern time good Westerns. Like even you still think
No.
about it now, they're still there, but it wasn't anything that really stuck out. It's like a good movie. It was what am I trying? Like it was credited as a good movie when it came out. It's been held as a great Western. Like it's up there. And for a remake too. It's not,
well, and
shot
it's like
for
it was
shot.
almost like it was somewhat filmed, obviously with modern technology, but almost like in an older way of filming it, where you still got some of that charm from an older Western.
Yeah. And costumes are great, right? Like the cities look great, and as you said, it's modern technology. They're able to kind of replicate this a little bit easier than it would have been, 30 years prior, or 24 years prior. And with like the same budget, I thought it was pretty interesting too. So it kind of shows where did the money go, right? What made it so much different? Where could it have improved? I think the casting was good. It was really good, but like you said, it's you see like kind of these random people who maybe they're trying their hand at Westerns, but you don't see Christian Bale as a Western. I honestly didn't see Russell Crowe as a Western.
No.
It's like you look at what was out in the cinemas, and that's why it is more difficult to find. You find some of these movies around here. I mean, you look at like Cry Macho, which came out. That was another Clint Eastwood, and it wasn't. Unfortunately, it's not that good. And that was 3-4 years ago. I think it's fairly recent. And I mean, he's disappointing. It's very disappointing. He's like 95 or something, dude.
Yeah.
He looks every day of it, it's unfortunate. And you're just like, dude, the mule, great. That's fine. That's a role that fits for somebody, especially of that age, right? That was kind of the whole persona that the person was. But you're trying to dust off the boots again. I don't know who got in your ear and told you it was a good idea. You weren't even really passing the torch, which might have been what it just.
Well, from what I've heard is that he's just going to keep going. Like he can't stop.
I mean,
people told him like, "Hey, you need to stop," but it's like he just can't.
And that's tough. I get it, right? You're a legend. How do you? Like you, you've been doing it for probably 60 years at least, right? And being a producer,
probably
though,
70,
probably. I mean, shit. I'm sure he had roles back in like the 1940s, probably on some of these. Like maybe not lead roles, but the 60s were his hotspot.
Well, I wonder when did like Dirty Harry come out?
Oh, Dirty Harry's in the 80s. You'd have to go to like.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was much.
I thought it was like the 70s.
No. Actually, that's 93, so maybe like 10 years prior to Tombstone. It was in the early 80s. You'd have to go to like the 1960s. So that's your
Huh.
Hang 'em High, Fistful of Dollars, Few Dollars More,
Yeah.
Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. All of that was in the early 60s, early to mid 60s.
Yeah.
So probably prior to that in the 50s, he was
At
probably
least
doing
50s.
some
Yeah. At least
roles
50s
here and
then.
there. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's 70 years. Yeah. So, yeah, you're probably spot on. He's been doing a lot more, but
It's crazy.
you're behind the camera now. Like, I get that is a change of, probably everything. But you still have control of this stuff, right? Like, you can still go in and pass the torch. Like, his kid's an okay actor. He's not, you know, it's hard to live up to your father's shoes, especially what he is, what it is.
Oh,
But
yeah,
I
like
know.
the catalog of work, like you're never
I,
gonna fill those shoes.
right. But
Unfortunately.
he's doing a lot of good stuff. Like, he's still good. I mean, he's a great action movie guy, which that's fine. That's perfect. He was in Suicide Squad just kind of randomly as like Navy SEAL #1. Like it wasn't, but still, fine. It was great. Trying to overcome some of that, I know, pump the brakes. But like you said, it's probably you can't. If you do, you think you're just going to be down and out. You're gone, right? Like that was probably his persona for the longest time. Like if I don't stop, I won't be relevant. Which, like. Again, I don't understand how no one has just been like, you're the GOAT. Like there is nobody else, bro. Like you don't have to keep doing it, but like it's the mentality, and you get up in that age, you're not gonna stop him. I mean, you could probably take like his walker away and slow him down, but like you're not really gonna stop him, right? Like he's still gonna do it.
Right.
It's just like, bro, your Clint Eastwood, like stop. Gran Torino should have been it. Just stop it.
Oh, that's a good movie.
I know. But again, casting. Ben Foster, I think he did pretty well. I could see him as like a cowboy.
I don't think you can really put Ben Foster in any. If you put him in any action type movie like that, I think he's going to knock it out of the park.
Sure.
I mean, hell, he was even good in Alpha Dog.
See, I got to watch that
but
one.
That was
with
action,
JT. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And even like in Lone Survivor, he was great in Lone Survivor. He also looked just like the guy that he was playing too, so that helped a lot. But
yeah, so again, it was a great action role, and so it, his way of talking is kind of the same in a lot of movies, and it fits well. Like it's kind of calculated what he's about to say, and he's not acts as in like an actor, but he acts in a lot of his characters. So it's like. He just like what happens at the end. Spoiler alert! For those who haven't seen the movie, go see it. You're kind of late to the party, so I don't feel too bad. But unfortunately, Dan doesn't make it at the end, and Ben kills him. Ben Foster, his character, I forget his name. He shoots him like 5 times.
Charlie? Is it Charlie? Charlie.
That's it. It was Charlie. Shoots him a lot. I was like, dang, dude, like really had it against him, did you?
Was another. Like almost in the same moment when you realize, that Wade is he's been playing everybody the whole time, but he, like we said, he had the humility there for a minute to get the father and son. He's like, yeah, I'll like when he told him, I got a confession to make. I've been to human prison twice and I escaped twice. Right. So it's like I'm gonna get out again.
I'm gonna do it again.
Get there so you can get paid.
Right.
So for that moment, but then at like the same time, that's when Dan gets shot like at least 6 times, and it's like he's not making it, and his son watched him right there get just shot up. It's like you don't see that a whole lot in movies.
Right.
It's usually like after the fact they'll find them if they got shot up, or they got shot once or twice and they can make it back to wherever they're at, type of thing.
Right. And I'm sure it was probably when they first wrote it risky. Because you're not getting the ride off into the sunset moment. And sure. I think, you could probably chalk up most Westerns. That's right. They get the girl, they're the good guy, they get away, they go to live their life, whatever. There's not too many, but they don't. And it is one of them. Again, it sets them apart. They kind of have a shitty ending and a dramatic ending. It's not shitty, a dramatic ending. And but it does cement in the characters redemption arc, right? It's at least showing that Ben, like you said, has the humility. He has this ability to be like, well, that was messed up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to help,
Yeah.
but I understand I can't. It's still, like you say, it's still a game to him. And fortunately, somebody lost their life in his game that he was actually kind of like, I feel for you. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're trying
Well, then he
everything
ended
to
up,
make sure.
and then he killed his entire crew
Right.
because of that.
Right. And just like a quick, the hand of God. And it's great that they have like, it's a symbol, right? Like, did you see the gun? Have you seen it? And
Right.
like it's this thing that's held that it's the gun doesn't do anything, right, other than shoot the bullets. It's the person using the gun,
Right.
but they hold it as like this weapon that is
Yeah, they're
above
like
the
it's a
rest.
cursed gun, so be careful.
Be careful, the gun's cursed, right? Yep. And so it's not the gun, it's
It's the person.
everybody that's like touching his stuff. So it's like it's not the gun doing it, but
Yep.
it's still a fun concept of like it's this like holy grail,
Yep.
and they give it back to him and then wipes him out, which was wow, damn, that was pretty nuts.
Mhm.
And because you kind of saw it in his face, you're like, oh, I wonder if he's, if he could shoot Ben, at least Charlie, but then he just like gets him all. You're like, oh,
Because everybody, yeah. Like you don't see that coming at all, and then riding off
Mm.
into the sunset, if you will,
yeah,
gets on
in
the
his
train, and then he
cell,
whistles for his horse, and you're like, "You son of a bitch! You're gonna keep
right,
going."
yeah, he was
But
never
that's
going to
just
stop being a bad guy, yeah.
yeah,
And I think a lot of his story going up to, he's like, oh, have you ever been to whatever city, right? Like he has like two
San
or three different
Francisco,
cities.
and yeah,
There was another one he was talking to. Have you ever? Oh, you were a singer there. Like he's always got like a story because he keeps moving. He's just never
yeah.
not a bad guy. So
Well, I'm sure a lot of it's bullshit just to get what he wants. Like you said, he's a
and that's the
manipulator.
manipulation of it. Maybe he's
Yeah.
never been there. Maybe he's just
Yeah.
that talky. That's how he gets where he wants and what he
Yeah.
wants. Um, one of the things that like you just rewatch it, you're kind of like that was goofy. The stagecoach scene in the beginning, I think, was a little over dramatized, which
Yeah.
again, Hollywood, whatever, it's all this stuff. Like it flips and it's like this huge car crash in a sense. And it's like, I think probably weighed a stupid amount. There was no way it got launched into the
That was
air.
the
And all that
steel
stuff.
one, right?
Yeah, that was the one that had all the
Yeah.
money on the inside. It
Yeah.
also had the Gatling gun, which I don't know if you
Yes.
caught this, but the second they were taking sniper fire, he locks in on this dude, and then like 10 rounds hit right in front of the sniper dude, and you're like, with a Gatling gun,
Yeah.
you just nailed 10 right there, dead circle. It's like,
Right.
okay. I mean, I get you're laying down fire, like maybe you have a line or something, but they were like all right in front of him, and you're like, you had no idea he was there. You're like, he got shot in the chest trajectory. There he is, bah, 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 bah. And you're like,
Right. Well, it's just like the
Okay.
classic Hollywood thing of, oh, funny
Right.
how the bullets just like even when Wade and Dan are running on the rooftop and everything, it's like, oh, people are leading them on almost, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like in front of them. It's
Right.
just
Yeah,
that whole
seriously.
movie thing.
So
None of them got hit the entire time. Okay.
So some of it, you kind of what at least in Tombstone, right? That was part of the myth and the
Yes.
the
The mystique of
mythos
everything.
to
Yeah.
Wyatt Earp, right? When he was in the creek, because
Mhm.
there's people who will take that to the grave. He was never hit. They shot
Mhm.
all these bullets, and he walked right up to Bill. That's how he killed him, right? The shot, he didn't get hit for whatever someone, right? The vendetta. That's why it was called the vendetta ride. Like he was not going to die until he got his. He got his.
Yeah.
Basically. So yeah, I think that's why 310 really holds up. As like a good modern western. Like it
Absolutely.
checked a lot of boxes, and I think it is something that can be comparable to Tombstone. And
Yeah.
the aspects of the budget was very, spot on.
Yeah.
What they did shooting wise, like not weapon wise, but I mean cinematically, I think they
Yes.
both had very good things and flawed things. I think that that again they probably could have done maybe some farther shots if you want
For
to
sure.
pick it apart, but ultimately I think it wrapped up very well. It was received very well. I think especially Tombstone, right? Over the years, I think it obviously gathers more traction because you still have people who are like, "You've never seen that? What? Like you have to
For
go
sure.
watch that." It's like with the 310, like I told you, it's like, dude, you gotta go see it. It was great. It's a good western of nowadays. Like it's not, it's really not held to any really low bar. Like it's pretty good. I think maybe the mining scene probably could have been skipped a little bit. I I think that probably was meant to maybe create more of a dynamic between Ben and Dan, their characters.
But also, I mean, you really didn't you dealt with what, 3 Apaches when they were going through that pass, and they're like, oh, it's going to be covered in Apaches, and there was only 3 Apache sharpshooters.
That's true.
They
That
could
is
have
true.
totally went into a whole epic battle with that.
Yeah.
Which, hold on, I guess at night, that's when Ben. Yeah, I guess at night Ben went out and took care of business out there. But it's like that was it.
Yeah, so maybe that was like each little incident was bringing them a little bit closer,
Sure.
So they were kind of making maybe
For sure.
instead of extending that into like something that probably was like, oh, dude, that was pretty gnarly.
Sure.
They then finish with that one. Let's go to the next one.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, I got the dynamite. You shoot it. It's kind of like partner stuff. So
yeah. Which would totally happen in real life,
Hey man, I've done it. I've seen it done. I mean,
10.
come on.
Yeah, 10 for 10. You're
Dead
hitting
eye.
that. Yeah, yeah, with a sawed off on a horse.
Dude, it hits everything. What do you mean? It's a sawed off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a 500-foot spread.
Oh yeah, within 5 feet.
Yeah, it better be right in front of you. Or else you're going to be hitting everybody on the railroad. Holy hell! They're all catching some pellets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Overall, these obviously 2 movies that are just fantastic and synonymous with westerns,
and in their own ways too.
Right, and one newer, one older. I mean, I think this is kind of the concept that we want to touch on. It's like seeing, like you said, how the camera equipment, it shoots clearer, right? Like Tombstone, it's a little fuzzier. So it's just that's how technology advanced. So you're trying to like set yourself like, let me watch this in it's original. Let me try and be in that moment of watching this for the first time, or even just rewatching it, right? Like, and then you pick something up you never saw before. It's fantastic. This is the comparison that we wanted, and a lot of it just fell into place. I mean, it's wonderful how some of these things do happen, and hopefully we can, catch lightning every single time. But I mean, everybody knows at least one of these movies. So if you ask,
for sure, or know
maybe
somebody who's seen it, they can bring you up to speed on it.
Right. Or just like gush over it, like, oh, it's the greatest movie. Like I saw this as a kid, I watched it all the time. Like they have some sort of, like you said, some sort of younger, child connection to it, where that was like a cool movie they watched, and it's just like it's stuck in there forever. I know, like I said, a lot of my wife's family, like you mention it, they'll just start going on about the movie. It was good. So, and they have the connection because they've gone to the town so many times, and it's like, it's become a part of their, honestly, their life. So it's always interesting. I have no idea what we're doing for the next ones. I think we're just, the structure of it is exactly what we just did. And we're going to talk about both movies. We're going to pick them apart a little bit. It's not a competition. So I don't want that lost in this. We're not saying one is better than the other. We're trying to make comparisons over the years and open these up to, okay, Tombstone was good because why? 3:10 to Yuma was good because why? They're both Westerns, and they're both held to a very, very high standard. That's what we want with these movies. We also want to give information too. Like some of this stuff I didn't even know. Like I love information. Knowledge is the true quest, right? Like that's what you want. You want to get that. And some of the stuff is just really cool behind the scenes stuff. And you just never know what you're going to learn. And for all of you listening, like again, drop some comments, hit us up on some of these find us on Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is. Drop some requests. We're more than happy to be like, okay, that's a great idea. And then we'll find one. We'll kind of pick apart your movie and we'll throw in there that we think is very comparable. We'll kind of see, a lot of the people who follow this, I guarantee are going to be folks that have the same mindset. They may have never seen either of these movies, but talking about them, you're like, oh, actually, that sounds very interesting. Let me get into it. And it opens you up to a whole new genre, or just saw a couple of good movies. I mean, both of these are 2-hour runtime, so it's really not that bad. That's a good Saturday night, Friday night, whatever.
Exactly.
and then you just saw a great movie, a synonymous movie with
Yeah.
whatever it is. And then some of the, at least one of these is based in reality, right? Like Tombstone was a whole story. And dude, Wyatt Earp died in like 1929, which I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that was actually recent. You know, and I shouldn't say recent, but in the
Almost
grand
100
scheme
years
of
ago.
Westerns,
Yeah.
that's pretty, considering most Westerns are what, 1800s. Like, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, actually he lived out of it. It's kind of funny when you break that wall of the 1900s and you come in, you're like, oh, yeah, that's actually within the century. Like that's fairly close. I mean,
Oh yeah.
depending on how old some grandparents are, they might have even known him or at least knew of him. Like, oh, I saw him,
Yeah.
you know, at the mall that one time, right? Like, whatever, you know, whatever. It's there would have been malls, I guess, 100 years ago, you know, but grandma was shopping for some Bunyan cream. I don't know. But you know how it is, dude.
Yeah, I saw him at the
It's
Mall
just,
of America. Yeah.
yeah, he was buying new cowboy boots, bro. You know what I mean? The ostrich skin was getting a little weathered, so he had to get something new.
There you go. Oh shit.
It's
But
a
no,
bit. I can totally see it.
oh yeah. You got it, buddy. But no, like what Travis was saying, definitely put some comments down there. Remember not the cutoff, but if you're gonna give us two different movies, one prior to 95 and then post 95, just because that's a good, at least from what we've discussed, that's a good middle ground in movies pretty much all around, where you kind of start to see differences in filming techniques, technology, things of that nature. So that way you have a good time frame to be looking at when you go to comment and possibly put it in movie that you want us to do.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So that was the official first episode. I hope everybody who made it to the end has really enjoyed it, and we'll be back next Tuesday, Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. We're going to be posting this. It'll be a scheduled post, so it'll be up, ready to go for your drive into work or whatever it is, man. If you want to watch the video too, that's always appreciated. But again, post a like, comment, whatever. Let us know, good, bad, and the other. Give us feedback. I'm more than happy. Constructive criticism. Tell us we're terrible. I don't care.
And who knows? Maybe we'll start reading some of your comments out or questions if you have questions, whatever. Maybe we'll start reading those out. We're going to try to do something of not the same intro every time, but maybe something of a little discussion before we get into the meat and potatoes of the episode. So definitely put some comments down there if you have any questions. We can answer those, before we get going on these episodes. So definitely be in contact with us. And I think we talked about this, Trav, about getting an email set up. That way you guys can, if you want to email us, you can. That way it's not our personal stuff. But yeah, we'll be getting that out shortly. And we'll let you know what that is probably in the next episode or two.
Yep, absolutely. So again, we'll reiterate, make sure you get out tomorrow, vote.
Yes.
Let your opinions be out there.
Exercise that right. There's a lot of people that are out there fighting for that right now too. So definitely, let's honor them and get out there and like Travis said at the beginning, doesn't matter what side you're on, but go out and vote because it is our duty and our right.
Yep. So, hope everybody has a great week. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Again, leave that feedback. You can find us. It's on YouTube, Rumble. Hit it up. We'll catch you next time, right?
Not a tutorial.
This is not a tutorial. That's the name of the channel. That is correct. Thank you. Thank you. Plug my own channel. Yeah. On that note, have a great week, everybody.
Have a good one. We'll see you next time.